안녕하세요. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Joining me from wherever you are, my name is Jules Cho, and I am the director of IGTO Seoul office here in South Korea. So first of all, thank you for taking the time to join me today. I would like to share with you some information on Korean travel characteristics and a brief analysis of inbound travelers to Israel. So let's get started. Let's bring up the PowerPoint page here first. One moment, please. All right, let me just configure this. All right, so let's get started. This will be a 20-minute presentation where I will give you an environment analysis of the Korean market, tourism market, and then followed by an information on inbound Korean travelers' characteristics. And I will also give you some information on the change of perception of overseas travel of South Koreans related to COVID-19. I will also share some information on our office's marketing initiatives and finish off by informing you about the domestic tourism policies and marketing activities regarding COVID-19 here. So, we are located in East Asia, and Korea occupies the southern portion of the Korean peninsula, or South Korea to be exact. And our country is bordered by North Korea to the north, East Sea to the east, East China Sea to the south, and Yellow Sea to the west. South Korea makes up about 45% of the peninsula's land area, and our capital city is Seoul. If you look at the major cities by population, of course, our capital city, Seoul, takes number 1, followed by Busan City, followed by Incheon and Daegu, and finally Daejeon. When we target ourselves, we usually target Seoul and the greater area around Seoul, as well as Busan City. Moving on, population. We are a little shy of 52 million pax. If you look at the color coding, you can see that the darker portions represent the most dense areas, and the lighter colors are where there are more or less people residing. And let's look at religion. 28% of our population are Christians, so it's very important for the Israel pilgrimage market to target Korea and market correctly. So we are heavily focused on, of course, satisfying the pilgrimage travel agencies here, as well as cooperating with the land operators in Israel. If we move on to the age graph, you can see that we have a very nice bell-shaped graph where the population age group of 25 to 54 are the majority at 46%. You can see that this population age group is in their peak earning and spending years. And you can see that we have an ideal age group that we can target that fits both the pilgrimage market and the FIT market. Moving on, looking at the ethnic composition, we are 100% Koreans by ethnicity, and we use Korean as our Korean is our first mother tongue. We do speak English, but to a certain degree. So I wouldn't expect my next door neighbor to be fluent in English. Moving on to economy, our GDP is US dollars 1,642 billion US dollars, ranked number 12 in place worldwide. Our GDP per capita is 31,431 US dollars. And our unemployment rate in 2020 is at 4.5%. This data was pulled by World Bank. Let's move on to the next page. If we look at the disposable personal income, our per capita, it's at $21,882 per year. So it's a little lower than the OECD average of $33,604 US dollars a year. This is because there is a considerable gap between the richest and the poorest, where the top 20% of our population earn more than 5 times as much as that of the bottom 20%. So that's the reason why. So we need to keep this in mind when we market ourselves. The type of the travel that Koreans love to do are, number one, leisure by 56%, followed by business 25%, followed by education 12%, and others at 7%. And if you look at the graph of the outbound travels, in 2017, we had 26.5 million, and in 2018, the highest at 29.7 million travelers, and in 2019, last year, we had 24.3 million. So you can see that almost half of our population, which is 51 million in total, travel overseas. So we love to travel, and this has been the case until COVID-19 happened. Moving on. Our expenditure on outbound travel is 33.5 billion US dollars, and our expenditure per capita is $980. Our average stay for outbound travel is about 5 days, and we get a paid annual leave of 15 days. Okay, and let's look at the travel characteristics more in detail. So South Koreans are experienced travelers. We prefer to make our own travel plans. We mostly take short trips and view travel as a means of relaxing, and ease takes up top priority for us. The reason why we love to take short trips is because our paid annual leave is only 15 days. And if we look at the passport strength index, we are at third worldwide with an eligibility to enter 188 states worldwide. The top 5 destinations that we love to go to is number 1, Japan, followed by Vietnam, third in place is US, and 4th, Philippines, and finally Thailand. As you can see, except for the United States, all 4 countries are about 4 hours distance by flight, which you can go by LCC. So popular mode to travel is LCC flights. And so again, this ties into our paid annual leave days, as well as the reasons for traveling, which are mostly leisure and relaxing. Okay, let's move on. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the Korean digital media environment and our consumption habits related to this. So the top 5 websites by ranking is number 1, Naver, a local portal, search portal, as well as news media, followed by Google, YouTube, Daum, another local portal and news media website, and lastly, Facebook. Korea has one of the most developed and active social media user bases globally. To understand the Korean digital media landscape, you need to understand the technological landscape. We have a 95% internet penetration rate, so you can see that we're highly connected, both PC-based and mobile, where these days mobile digital marketing is taking up more of a buzz for us. So we're trying to focus on the mobile marketing. We also have a high number of active users for Facebook at 15 million. For Instagram, we have 13.4 million active users, and KakaoTalk is the most used local social media platform. So all of the the names, the brands that I'm introducing you right now are the ones that you want to target if you want to market in South Korea. I'd like to also add that as of January 2019, statistics reported that the top 5 countries that have the highest social media penetration are United Arab Emirates at 99%, Taiwan at 89%, and followed by third, South Korea at 85%. So social media is a big thing here that we must market. Okay, let's move on to inbound Korean traveler characteristics. Due to time constraints, I will be focusing on more important information. I will share the entire presentation with you later through the PDF that I will upload. Let's look at the statistics of Korean tourists visiting Israel. So from 2016 to 2019, we had a compound annual growth rate of 21%. We believe that this number was achieved by the change of marketing strategy. We focused only on pilgrimage markets initially, but we moved to include Israel as a holiday destination, and we did a lot of digital campaigns, such as we did lots of Facebook and Google ads and introduced Israel as a great holiday destination to travel to. So we believe this strategy contributed to the spike in numbers of visitation. Moving on to number of Korean tourists visiting Israel per month. The best season to visit Israel was January, February, and March. So the winter season and early spring season. The second best season that the Koreans preferred to travel to Israel was September, October, and November. You can see that for year 2019, the winter season was especially more popular. Moving on to travel patterns of Koreans traveling to Israel. The average length of stay in Israel is 6.3 days, and the average expenses per tourist is around $1,617. In terms of trip organization, Korean travelers prefer to travel by package sales at 56.2%. Followed by FIT at 43.8%. But we believe that this FIT represents also the tourists who organize their own travels, including seminary groups and church leaders. We believe this number was included in the FIT. Looking into the purpose of visits, we can see that studies and business and mission trips were recorded at number 1 place at 41.2%, followed by pilgrimage and Holy Land tours at 36.4%. Again, the missionary group numbers were included in this figure, so you can see that the numbers are relatively higher than the pilgrimage Holy Land tours. Again, the sightseeing and touring followed next by 17% and other figures. If you look at the age of tourists, you can see that the population age graph is similar to the age of the tourists who travel to Israel as well in general. So from the age groups of 25 to 35 to age groups of 45 to 54 were the majority group. Okay, so let's talk about Korea's change of perception towards overseas travel after COVID-19. So the Travel Times News did a survey on the Koreans' change of perception towards overseas travel after COVID-19. And as to the question of when will you travel after the day after, 31% responded that they will travel within 3 months, followed by 6 months, followed by 1 month, followed by 1 year, and after 1 year. Lastly, after 1 year. And to the question of current intentions to travel abroad, 78% responded that they will leave when conditions are more conducive to traveling. And only 22% responded that they had no intentions to leave for now. So as you can see that we had a relatively positive feedback towards overseas traveling once we recovered from COVID-19. Looking into the current intentions to travel abroad, male respondents responded most positively at 61.6%, and only 35.7% responded that they have no intentions to leave in the near future. Surprisingly, the 50s age group had the highest number of positive feedback towards leaving when conditions were more conducive to travel at almost 70%. And it was followed by the age groups 19 and under and age groups 20s, 30s, and onwards. Moving on to the prerequisite conditions for traveling abroad, 81.3% responded that secure safety measures for COVID-19 related destinations was the most important factor. And it was followed by border reopening and quarantine restrictions being lifted. And next in line was the reopening of air routes, and also another important factor to be considered was creating an acceptable social atmosphere for travel. So you can see that financial stability and attractive discounts for hotel flights were not the highest factors, not the most important factors to be considered for traveling abroad. Moving on, as to the questions for not traveling abroad in the near future, 90.1% responded that it was worry of infection of COVID-19, of course. And 44.7% responded that it was border closure restrictions, and 18.8% said that it was flight suspension. So the environmental factors were definitely the reasons for not traveling abroad in the near future. The physical environmental factors. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about our office activities briefly. So we did our first ever travel roadshow in 2018 with a directive to expand the current market to a holiday destination. We invited 20 renowned media outlets and 150 Korean and Israeli B2B travel industry partners, including airliners, Israeli inbound travel agencies, the embassy, and land operators and travel agencies. All in all, it was very successful. We had 4 new partnerships between Korean and Israeli travel agencies. We had over 30 news articles published, and 200 participants came to visit our roadshow for the first time. And we had lots of speakers come in to talk about various subjects, such as setting the stage for better travels to Israel. And we also talked about the state of security in Israel and the travel advisory. We also talked about, our office talked about the IGTO tourism marketing strategy. And we invited lots of travel agencies to come in to talk about their stories and their experiences of Israel and the marketing side. We talked about the state of Korean travel trends. We invited some specialists to talk about the travel trends. And we invited again, the travel agencies to talk about the state of Korea's travel trends, focusing on online travels, and had real travel stories to Israel from a very seasoned tour guide. So all in all, it was a very informative session for for the entire day, from 10 p.m. to 5 p.m. It was very successful. VIP hosting. We did a lot of hosting throughout the years, but we would like to show you a couple of them here. One is VIP hosting, Mr. Hon Sok Chan. He participated in our Pride Parade, and he garnered over 50,000 Instagram total likes and comments, 550 plus comments. And he also made 2 YouTube videos on that, and many of his participation was featured on the news. Also, we did some influencer hosting with Miss Kang Hee-jae and Yoo Min-ju. These two are the famous lifestyle Instagrammers on Instagram. They garnered over 40,000 likes and over 600 comments. We also did 4 hosting video clips on Israel, one being the airport entry and departure how-to video. The other was an introduction to Israeli food, especially focusing on vegan destination. We did another video vlog on Israel travels, a general video log on Israel travels, and finally a fam tour video on the digital nomad story version of his Israel experience. Let's talk now a little bit about domestic tourism policies and marketing activities regarding COVID-19. So the Korean government's tourism policy in response to COVID-19 can be summarized to, number 1, giving life stability support, such as for the entire country, they provided disaster assistance payment, and they also provided loans for stable living funds, such as family care leave, paid vacation expenses for corona-infected contactees. And number 2, the government provided worker support measures to the virus-stricken businesses. 90% of salary support for employment maintenance was given. So it's around about like US dollars, $60 worth per day. And they also, and the government also postponed taxes and gave employer benefits, gave VAT reduction for small self-employed businesses. And number 3, in general, for the tourism, exclusively applied to the tourism industry, they supported recovery of the tourism industry and promotion of domestic tourism demand through domestic travel discount events led by the government and the regional tourism organizations. They also did some promotion on tourism products such as citizen tourism gifts and prepaid discount coupons. And they also gave out travel expense subsidies worth about $40 US as gift vouchers to tourists who applied on the government websites, and also gave out special financing for tourism funds worth $8.3 million US in special loans for business and operation loss expenses. Finally, to finish off, I'd like to introduce you to the Korea campaign, Corner to Corner, to promote domestic tourism during the COVID times. You can visit the official website, koreanvisitkorea.or.kr. And this campaign is focused on raising awareness level of unknown Korea travel sites by building up emotional appeal of the Korean holidays, featuring professional travel writers' blogs and ordinary travelers' SNS contents. So you can take a look at it and maybe benchmark some of the great ideas here. So this is it for today. Thank you so much for participating in my webinar. Due to the time restraints, I wasn't able to cover everything, but hopefully since I'm uploading the PDF, you will be able to gather more information. So thank you, and toda raba.